Oh, nice. We get to introduce Alejandra. Perfect. That'll be in a little bit here. Okay, right now I have Lacey as a co-host. I'm waiting for one more interpreter, I believe.
And I'm here, John.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you. I love it. As soon as you guys talk, it
Yeah.
pops right into my first. All right, make co-host as well. Perfect. Excellent. All right, folks, good morning. Today is June 14th, 2024. This is Coffee with Community Services, Alta California Regional Center's weekly service provider meeting. And we have a few things on our schedule for today, for our agenda. Let me go through our introductions first, and then we'll get into our agenda. So, from Community Services, I see Janice on, good morning, and our lead Community Services Specialist, Jason, and I see Jessica on, and Shauna, good morning, and Christine, and from Client Services, I see Toby on this morning. Good morning, Toby. I see our manager Michelle is on, who I don't know is going to be giving a DSP stipend update today. We don't have any new information for folks. I see Tom on, our housing specialist Rhonda is on. Good morning, Rhonda. From client services, I see Dana on, and I see Alicia, our HCBS specialist. Alicia, I saw your notes from yesterday. We might talk a little bit about your HCBS meeting as well. And I also see Chris on. Good morning, Chris. And Beverly from Community Services and Jolana. And Michael, who's going to be presenting to us shortly as well. And I see Odelia on and Belinda and Melinda as well. And Melinda, I'm going to ask you to talk about our Deaf and Hard of Hearing forum that we're going to be having later this month too, okay? A little bit later. And I see Scott on. Good morning, Scott. And Helen, our two managers as well. And Julie, good morning, Julie Rockfall. And our Associate Client Services Director, Tracy, is on. Good morning, Tracy. And my assistant, Zach, is here. Good morning, Zach. And our Director of Intake and Clinical Services, Camelia. Good morning, Camelia. And I see Rihanna and Adriana on. Good morning. And Ethan. And Hubert. Good morning, Hubert. Hopefully no more fires. We need to calm down with the fires here. Hopefully the weather will change a little bit. I see Marty on. Good morning, Marty, and Kylie as well. Good morning, Kylie, our QA specialist. And I see Jordan on. We've got our HCBS team is well represented here. We've got all of you guys on, I think, right? Almost. Yvette. We need Yvette from QA too. We got to get our whole QA unit. Let's see. Rowena from Client Services. Good morning, Rowena, as well. All right. So we'll roll into. Oh, I saw Max just popped on there too. Good morning, Max. All right. So let's get into our agenda. So we have our Deaf Culture 101 and Sign of the Week from Michael. We have, we'll do an update on the Being Michelle premiere at the Crest Theater. I'm going to give folks a rate study update of information that we've received over the last week. Some information that was already given yesterday at our Provider Advisory Committee meeting. We will talk about, as I mentioned, the Deaf and Hard of Hearing vendor forum that's going to be coming up towards the end of the month. And we also have a little update on our budget and on the statewide FMS. And we're going to talk about it, but I think we're going to go ahead and cancel our July 5th coffee with community services that Friday right there. So we'll talk about that too. But before we go further, Michelle, I believe we have introductions to make today.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. I wanted to introduce you to our newest member of our team. So Alejandra Cruz, and I'll let you introduce yourself a little. So Alejandra will be working with supported living services and our day program. So go ahead, Alejandra.
Hello, everybody. My name is Alejandra Cruz. It's nice to meet everybody.
And if you want to just touch base on your background a little bit.
Yeah, so I used to work at the AIM Hire at Roseville. I was a director assistant, and I have my master's in social work, and then I also have my bachelor's in gerontology. Yeah.
Excellent. And certainly the gerontology field, as we look at our services for our aging population, is very important. Lots of stakeholder feedback in that area.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we're throwing it over to Michael now. And Michael, I will be spotlighting you for everyone.
Hello, hello. Great. So today's sign of the week is language. This is the sign. Well, there's two signs that we use. The first sign we use for language is this hand shape. You take your 5 hand shape, bring your index and thumbs together, and make this language, just like that. Language. The second form of this sign is using the L hand shapes for language. So the same movement. It just kind of depends on the signer's preference as to which one they will use. I'll go ahead and send you the YouTube link in the chat so that you can practice this one as well. Now for Deaf Culture 101. I figured it would be a good opportunity to share with you as hearing folks how to interact with deaf people. Now, there are several things we can add to this list, but we're going to go over a little bit of deaf etiquette here today. So I have 3 points to make here. First is, how would you get a deaf person's attention? You know, we can't hear you saying, hey, so-and-so, if you're in the office. So if you're standing behind them, how would you get their attention? I have a few do's and don'ts for you today. This will be fun. So one of the do's, it's important. So if the person is standing, you can gently tap them on their shoulder, not go around slapping them on their shoulder, but tap them gently, or get in their peripherals and wave. The movement will catch their attention. Also, if you have access to a light switch nearby, it is very common for deaf folks to turn on and off the lights to get attention. So those are 3 important things you can do to get the person's attention, whether it be a gentle tap on the shoulder, the lights, or a gentle tap on the shoulder, the lights, or the interpreter lost it there, sorry. And a wave, yes, sorry, thank you. And a wave. And so those are the do's. And then the don'ts would be, oh, sorry, we kind of got lost here. So when you see a deaf or hard of hearing person and you see them, 2 of them standing in front of each other, having a conversation in sign language, and you have to walk through that conversation, go ahead and just walk through normally. go ahead and just walk right on through. You don't have to stop or anything like that. You don't have to crouch underneath their signing. That actually is more of a distraction. So for example, when hearing people are in or in the general public sitting around having coffee, maybe having coffee at a coffee place, facing each other and chatting, they can hear the background noise, but they're paying attention to the conversation in front of them. The same with deaf people and their eyes. There are people walking around the room in their peripherals, but they're focusing on the person in front of them for that conversation. So when a person just casually walks through, it doesn't cause a distraction, unlike if they were to crouch or make a big deal out of it. It would be the same thing as if in a room of hearing people, if somebody started shouting, then that would cause a distraction and it would bring your attention to that person shouting. So the same thing applies to a person crouching between two deaf and hard of hearing people having a conversation in sign language when you have to walk through. So now in terms of communicating with deaf and hard of hearing, and some who can speak or lip read, the one of the important things to do when you're talking to somebody who does lip read is to speak clearly and speak naturally. Just use your natural movements and tone. Make sure you're facing that person and maintaining eye contact. Use facial expressions and gestures, but what you're not going to do is exaggerate your facial expressions and your lip movements. When you're talking, don't cover your mouth with your hands or look away, because the deaf person would be like trying to follow where your mouth is so they can read. And don't talk fast. And don't talk way too slow. Just keep your normal pace. All right, so that's it for now. I hope we've learned a few great things today in terms of Deaf Culture 101, do and do not.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I now want to throw it over to Melinda to describe our upcoming forum that we are having. I don't know if we're going to call these things forums. I don't know if we kind of confusing when we do it that way, but regardless, vendor forum that's coming up, and we're very excited about it because it's our first time doing something like this, and we really hope it's going to support you. So I'll throw it over to Melinda.
Sure. Thank you. So, as John had said, yes, we are having our first deaf and hard of hearing vendor forum in person, to the size of what we're going to be having. The Deaf and Hard of Hearing Vendor Forum is a time for you to come on out and learn about how to support the deaf and hard of hearing communities. I will be the host and lead, but Michael will also be presenting there as well. And we will be giving the perspectives on deaf and hard of hearing. So that way, for your clients that you support and community members that you see, you are able to have more information and feel confident. We will also send you home with resources that you can use right away. And the whole point of this is so you get to meet your neighbor. I want you to get to know the people around you who also are experts in this field. And we will be having two of our major agencies that we would consider to be experts here joining us. And as you all get to meet and introduce each other, introduce yourselves to each other, you get to have a lot of conversation and get to understand who can support you. Because at the end of the day, when you are a vendor, you have to rely on your generic resources, and these are generic and natural resources around you. I will be giving the registration link here in the chat. Currently, we have 66 participants, and this registration link does ask you very specifically if you need any kind of accommodation, and if so, please let me know, because we are ADA compliant. There will be interpreters on site. We have a team of 4 coming in, and you get to see what massive interpreting looks like in an audience where you've got a team up front and then a team in the back wandering around and everyone supporting each other. Yeah, I'm super excited for it. It's going to be great. It's been in the works now for a couple of months, almost a quarter, and it's a dream and a vision of mine coming true. So yes, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, please address them in the registration link. So that way I can address them there and Michael can address them there live. And we can also ask our community, because like I said, this is a conversation for us to have, because it's about time that we meet the needs of our clients in a different way and we feel confident with doing so. So I look forward to seeing you there in a couple of weeks.
Excellent. Can you drop in the chat, please, the registration link?
Yes, John, it's already there.
Oh, is it? Oh, look at that. So fast. Very good. I am now going to drop the registration link for the Being Michelle, which we talked about at length last week. I do want to share feedback that we received at our Provider Advisory Committee meeting, because I always appreciate feedback like this. I understand, we are really utilizing the regional centers, including especially Michael at our regional center, the deaf and hard of hearing specialists, to help move and plan for this event, for the Being Michelle event. And just a lot of compliments that we heard yesterday at our Provider Advisory Committee meeting about having a deaf-led event like this. And again, like Melinda just got done saying, really opening the eyes up for people about how to ensure that you do have enough interpreters in a room. How do you ensure that you've got people set up to be able to provide that? So I just want to acknowledge the work that is going on right now with Michael and some of the other staff that are working from the other regional centers as well to promote the Being Michelle event. And again, that information is in the chat. And then Jordan, I just will appreciate you as well. Jordan Eller who is Alta's longtime forensic specialist and now a manager. And Jordan will be talking about the role of the regional center in supporting individuals with forensic needs at this as well. She's got her information for her panel, and we'll be excited to be able to share that information because not everyone knows about the forensic services that are offered. So we're excited, right,
Look
Jordan?
forward to it. We are. Yeah, it's a great opportunity. Can't miss it.
We will be a sponsor of this, or we are a sponsor of this as well for our regional center. And so that sponsorship, I understand, has been able to allow us, along with the other sponsorships, to make this a free event for people. So we just encourage people. I know for our staff, it's tough. It's the last week of the fiscal year, and we have a lot going on and things like that. But I just am very, very pleased that we're putting on an event like this and being able to participate in it here locally. It really aligns a lot with what we're trying to do here at our regional center. So good stuff. All right. I want to touch on, and Alicia, maybe we can just have a little discussion about this. And Scott, Scott, were you able to be at the HCBS evaluators? Well, you were with me, weren't you, in the Provider Advisory Committee meeting yesterday? Yeah. So you missed out on HCBS evaluators. Alicia, you guys got a little bit more discussion about kind of the next step on, it looks like your kind of evaluation tools and things like that.
Yeah, so the entire team was at the HCBS meeting yesterday, Kylie, Marty, and myself. We heard that statewide we're about 68% reviewed of the 8,000 settings in California that need to be reviewed. And for our regional center specifically, we are at 68.3% reviewed. That means we are 351 done and 163 left. We should be about 78% by June 30th. I'd like to mention that only 21 of our settings are currently in a remediation plan, meaning we found something and they're working on fixing it, which is amazing. And our team has not had to write one CAP or FAR yet. Because our providers have been so great in like fixing those issues within the given timelines. And Futures Explored has been really instrumental in visiting homes that have had some concerns and helping them become compliant, which is really great. It's a good support that we have. We are sending our July letters out today for all the homes that are going to be visited in July. Those will go out by the end of the day. And all settings have to be visited by August. So Alta will be at your program. If we haven't been there yet, if you're one of the 168 we haven't been to, we will be there by August 20th. That is our goal because we have to have everything submitted by August 31st to DDS. DDS also mentioned that about HCBS grants, so contracts for last year's grants. If you were awarded a grant, those were due by January and then awarded in March. If you haven't had your contract written, if you haven't submitted that scope of work, they need to come in because we have to have those signed by the end of the month. And if there are new grants for the next fiscal year happening, they will be announced probably between October and December. We have 34 ongoing grant projects right now. And I have heard from some vendors that they did not get, we usually send a letter out to all vendors saying these are the grants coming up. I have heard from some vendors that they didn't get that because their email wasn't updated with their CSS specialist. So if you want to be on those lists and get that information, make sure your email's updated. As far as ongoing evaluations, we will be doing evaluations annually, and there's going to be a tool developed statewide that all regional centers use. So we're all using our own tools right now that we've developed to figure out if you guys are compliant or not. But the statewide tool will be developed after August. We want all regional centers to be able to get their stuff done, and then that tool will be developed.
Perfect. Any questions about HCBS reviews? We have been tracking all of this very closely. That was as soon as Scott came on in his position. That's in essence what we talked about is kind of what Alicia had to do beforehand with the previous time that we went through this, and just the absolute grind of making sure that we stay on top of the numbers that have to get done. And what we've seen as a regional center is that we're just progressing along the lines that we said that we were going to. And again, I never felt like I wanted to be the regional center that was the first one done doing quality assurance evaluations. I don't think that's necessarily a position that we want to take as a regional center, that we got it through it the fastest. But I'm very pleased with the staff that we've been able to build up into these positions to do these things. And again, I think that, their level of understanding about these things is going to make it a lot easier for us in the future, as we do have, staff turnover and we have new, guidelines from the department that get put on us. It's just nice knowing that we've got some staff that really are well trained, and also that obviously our communication's working pretty well with our service providers, because we're getting through these things. We're not getting stuck on so many of these things. We're not ending up with huge corrective action plans. So shout out to you as service providers. We're going to get through this thing, guys, right? August, it'll be here before we know it. It seems so far away before, but you guys have just been really doing a fantastic job. So kudos to you guys on our HCBS team. All right, I now want to talk a little bit about the budget. Do I want to do that next? I think I do. I think I want to talk about the budget and rate study. Maybe not quite yet. Maybe I want to talk about something else first. I think I'll talk about the master plan for developmental services. Why don't we do that? Because otherwise I'll forget about it. So I mentioned this at the client advisory committee meeting. I believe it came up yesterday at the provider advisory committee meeting, and I'm going to share my screen for you all right now. Hopefully it'll work. Little computer issues this morning. Righty, are you guys seeing my shared screen that looks like it says master plan? All right, I saw Janice's head first. Thank you, Janice, I got you. All right, so this is your application if you are interested in being part of one of the committee work groups for the master plan for developmental services. Again, just like any of these statewide things, if any of you service providers are on and you have updated information or better or want to talk about these things, please unmute and let me know about it. This is the best information that I have, which is that the master plan for developmental services, which Victor Duran from the Department of Rehabilitation is heading that group. In essence, if you follow the development of the master plan for aging, we're developing a master plan for developmental services. And with that, they have a core group of people that are part of that committee. And there's going to be work groups that are set up to help support the development of ongoing policy determinations as it relates to the developmental services system in California. So if you would like to be an influential person in this, if you're interested in being part of one of the work groups so that you can lend your voice, and I would just say for you as service providers, it is extremely important because of the impact that you have and the contact that you have with clients, that you are part of this. As business owners, it's very important to know these things, but for the quality of the information that you can provide for like the day-to-day stuff, really service providers, it's extremely important. So and you'll understand this, I think, why when I click on this a little bit more. Okay, are we now seeing, this is like a survey monkey? You guys see a survey monkey type of thing with your name, email, all right, etc. All right, perfect. So first, I'm bringing this up because this is very short notice. This is like due next week. We got to get these back to the folks at the state. These are the different groups. It's interesting how they broke this up. They broke them up kind of under like mission type of objectives, as opposed to like what people might traditionally think of like, oh, we want a group that's focusing on early start services and ways in which we can influence policy as it relates to early start. Or, oh, we want to look at a work group that focuses on As you may be familiar with previously, we had the Developmental Services Task Force, and within that task force, we had things like a community development group, and we have a safety network group, and I was part of that safety network group, for example. Now they've changed it, and they're specifically, rather than kind of talking about different service types and breaking into the groups, they're talking about the following. Individuals and families experience person-centered service systems they trust. Individuals receive timely, inclusive, and seamless services across all service systems. Individuals and their families receive services from a high-quality, stable, and person-centered workforce. Individuals and their families experience consistent, transparent, accountable, and data-driven systems that focus on outcomes. Individuals are entitled to lifelong services with adequate resources. I'm going to drop in the chat real quick the information if you are interested in participating in one of these work groups. The applications for the committee work groups are due on June 21st. So you have 7 days to get these back in. And again, I'm going to put in the chat right now so you have it. Any questions about that, about participating in it? Certainly I think some of our executive management team may be part of this as well, some of these work groups, but I just want to again get it out there for you as service providers to really encourage you to look at signing up so that you can be influential in these areas, and I believe you'll be able to choose multiple of them if you'd like. Any questions about that, about the master plan? All right, no. All right, I'm going to go through my little list real quick, and I'm going to see who on right now was with me last Sunday out at the Pride Parade. And who do I have? Anyone? Oh, I'm short on people that were with me at the Pride Parade. Well, I'm going to share pictures anyways. All right. So I told folks last week, are you guys seeing, looks like a Facebook post? Yeah, right on. Thank you, Melinda. The first thumb up. So Alta staff were out at the Sacramento Pride Parade, and we had a big group of folks out here and really enjoyed ourselves. We did this last year for the first time, and you can kind of see us marching here in the parade. Had the pleasure of seeing our staff along the parade route, seeing our clients and their families along our parade route. Toby was with us out there. Toby was there. I didn't see Toby shaking his hand like that. Toby was certainly out there. Jaslyn and Norma from Community Services, but a ton of our staff. And Shamir, man, I just can't say enough about that guy and his organization of all of this, and supporting us on the day of and everything else. So I really appreciate him getting this all together for us, and coordinating things, making sure that we had the shirts that we needed. Everyone got to participate. I don't ever bring like my own family to things, but like this is something that my wife comes out for. So my wife was out there, at the parade as well. So again, I think I would encourage all of you, if you're interested, Alta staff in doing something like that. But it's important for people to see us out in the community. It's important for people to see that identification of the regional center. And for Lori and I know we're really committed in participating in this moving forward. Just again, the recognition that when people say, I'm an Alta client, or you see one of our clients, that are there, and certainly see our staff. So just want to acknowledge all the people that came out and really appreciated the participation in that for our community. And I will say, please think of, I'll close this out so you guys can see our Facebook page a little bit more, but please think about, if you don't follow the social media that we do as a regional center, there's a lot of great information that is put on there. So for example, even like the upcoming Juneteenth celebration that is going to be going on. A lot of the information that we provide you all is available on our events calendar, but things also are on our social media too. So just really want to encourage you to take a look at that, sign up if you are, and for you that are service providers, like and share our items as well. We typically will do that for our service providers when we have their information from social media too. Okay, I am going to go over and discuss something that I brought up yesterday during the Provider Advisory Committee meeting, which is information about the rate study. And for community services staff, many of them may not have heard this yet, and so it's an update for community services staff as well, which is that we've begun receiving the information that we need in order to start implementing the rate study. The first step for us to be able to do this is to be able to get the rate information from the Department of Developmental Services. We met with Robin LeMay this morning and discussed it with the client services managers, with the community services managers. We still need information on what we are supposed to do to implement the rate study. So I want to just talk about this. What we received thus far from the department is about 1,350 service providers rate files. So to give you an idea, we've got a lot of service providers at our regional center, and many of their rates are going to be changing with the implementation of the rate study, which we are looking at currently. That is required under law that the rate study is implemented on July 1. And as a budget update, the budget that is being put forth by both the Senate and the Assembly does include the rate study being implemented on July 1. However, I believe we know that the top Democrats in the state, along with Governor Newsom, are currently all locked in a room together trying to figure out what exactly the budget is going to look like. With that, we do not have any real specifics yet about the implementation of the rate study. We're just beginning to receive some of the files that will help us start doing some of the activities that we will need to do in order to implement it. I mentioned in the previous weeks when we have this meeting that there's 5 or 6 different items that we need to know before we can fully implement the rate study. And this is really just the first one of them, which is that information. So with that, what we are waiting for still, so that everyone is clear on it, is we are still waiting on how we are to implement the rate study. So for example, if there is a service provider that's currently vendored under service code 055 as a community-based aid program, something like that, and the rate study says that we are going to be moving them to a different service code, what do we need to do on the regional center end to modify those vendorizations to allow you to bill under maybe a new service code or with a new rate? We don't have that information quite yet. And that's the information that our accounting department desperately needs, but also for our community services specialists. Jason was integral in this before, and some of you other ones that dealt with the bundling and unbundling of rates and things like that. We dealt with categorizing the vendors before to help them to be able to move from, a monthly rate to an hourly rate, which a lot of the rates now are going to be hourly instead of a daily rate or kind of a more combined rates. They've broken apart a lot of these. The rate study in essence is really looking at funding competencies. Like I'm paying a psychologist $143 an hour, like that type of thing, because I know how much a psychologist makes, and here is what the additional factors are to cover the overhead costs to run that service. That's what they're really looking at and really trying to standardize that across the state. And so it's just, again, the information that the regional center doesn't quite have yet is how we are looking at the implementation of it still. We just don't have that. We don't have the time frames yet. What we do know is that there's a lot of service providers that we have been vendoring. And for some of you that may remember these activities about a year or more ago in our community services department, is that for some of those folks, we're going to have to do those calculations again for the new providers if their rates are not aligned with whatever comes out in the directives from the department. So again, in order for us to be able to fully implement the rate study, we still need the guidance from the department on how we're going to do it. And we still need the directives specifically that describe the service codes and what changes are going to be made. We know the department said they're going to be releasing those directives, but we don't have them yet. With the rates, one of the things we announced during the Provider Advisory Committee meeting yesterday was that we believe we got all the rates except for the transportation rates. We know that the transportation rate methodologies have still not per se been finalized by the Department of Developmental Services. There's a meeting next week that we'll be attending to be able to, one moment, I'm gonna do a little interpreter stuff. 1 second, please. All right. There we go. So as we receive the additional information from the department as it relates to the transportation providers, we'll be able to give more information about what the finalized rates are going to look like. But again, they have not determined exactly how they're going to roll out that directive. And I believe we're not meeting any further about it until next week. With that, we have shared that for our service providers, that would be a changeover to a mileage rate. And with that, we are looking at what the workload is at our regional center for having to move over so many different providers to a different rate methodology. What I will share is that we also understand that there is a hold harmless that is in place until 2026. And so in essence, what that means is that if the rate study is fully implemented on July 1st, then if that would cause a rate decrease for you, because your rate is higher than what the benchmark rates are in the rate study, then there's a hold harmless where you can still remain paid at your previous level through 2026. And at that point, then your rate would revert to whatever the benchmark rate is at that point. So we're going to talk about this a lot more in depth with visuals and go over all of it for each of your service codes. We're going to have to. We kind of did this previously in different vendor forums. It'll be an opportunity for our community services specialists and for you as providers to really understand what the new directives say. What the promise we kind of made yesterday during our provider advisory committee meeting is that we'll probably try to do the transportation providers first. If we can get this directive from them, we need to get transportation, like everything else is really important. Everything you guys do is very, very important, every single service. But we really have to make sure that we get our service providers like in the loop about this. And I say this because all these other categories, people have had a pretty good idea about what this is going to look like. People have had an idea about rate increases and everything else. And the transportation providers basically for 3+ years have been sitting with a question mark as to what the final thing from the department's going to look like. And at this point now, we still don't have that question mark answered, and we have it for everyone else at this point. We kind of have an idea about what it's going to look like. So I say that because we need to make sure everyone understands it. We have to understand the workload. So just know that that is our promise to you all, is that as soon as we get the additional information that we need to start doing these things, we're going to provide that opportunity. I wanted to see if anyone had any questions about the rate study. I know one of the things that came up yesterday was, well, what about the hold harmless as it relates to unbundling the rates? So in essence, taking a rate that might have multiple different professionals that are working within the rate and then separating the rate out. If that, are we going to be analyzing as a regional center to ensure that someone's not going to be losing money and that the hold harmless should be in place? So yes, those are the activities that we're going to be having to do at our regional center. We're just waiting for the guidance from the Department of Developmental Services on the timeframes in which we need to do it in, and then specifically what are the activities that are needed. We had a discussion, I was in a meeting with Beverly or someone yesterday or something, we were talking about the OIG, about whether or not we needed an OIG or don't need an OIG, like for some of these different things. We just don't know exactly what we're going to need to do for changing service codes and things for the providers, what if there's a new vendorization requirements or anything for that. So any questions from folks? That's all the updated information that we have, at least from right now, from Alta about the rate study, but anything folks want to else know about? Awesome. Perfect. Comprehensive. You guys know it all. So do we. Staff, I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry for all of you that are on here. I wish we had more information for you all, but just know that, Michelle and Helen and Jordan and Scott and I meet with, accounting every single Friday. We met with Robin this morning. Robin, we will smartly plan out all of this stuff, and we'll make sure that everyone's got time to the best of our ability to get these things done. Alrighty. With that, unless Marty Emoto sends out an email letting us know that there's some big budget information that's come out, I don't think we have any new updated budget information until we hear back from the governor, as I mentioned previously. Statewide FMS. I wanted to touch on that real quickly because we had an opportunity. Oh, Faye's not on here, but Faye is amazing. Faye's our Associate Client Services Director, and she was able to support me because for some of you. I am not the biggest expert in the self-determination program. I'm familiar certainly with what the needs of our agency are as it relates to financial management services and the challenges that are faced by some of the response times and some of the lack of availability to be able to get some of the budget started and communication. The state did a statewide FMS request for a proposal. We had an opportunity to receive approximately, I think it was 20 proposals, and we interviewed 4 candidates for that. And we are currently in the process of determining some of the finalized deliverables. But we're very excited because we have 3 companies that we are going to be looking at awarding the statewide FMS to. And again, we're finalizing things now so that we can send out notifications to everyone that applied. We had dozens and dozens of providers statewide for the statewide FMS. And my favorite email that I've received so far was actually from someone that was not chosen for the statewide FMS, who reached back out to me and talked about just really wanting to continue to work with our regional center to offer and expand FMS services, which that is also a huge benefit of this. And I know I talked with Helen about this, that once we complete the FMS request for proposal, that we, for all of those applicants, we really need to see ways in which we can lift up opportunities for them to be able to serve folks that are in SDP, to serve people, acronyms, in our self-determination program, serving people that are doing the competitive integrated employment and those payments processed, that are doing the paid internships, that are doing the participant directed services, that are doing social recreation payments. We've got, so many different needs for FMS services. So I'm very pleased that we're able to do the statewide FMS, that the department gave us the funding to be able to do that right at the end of the year. And also that we got some good candidates for our area. And we'll look forward to, I think in July when that rolls around, we might get a little bit more into sharing information more about some of the deliverables, et cetera, for the statewide financial management services. So again, this is awarding contracts to support 5 Northern California regional centers to expand those FMS services even further in our area. So very excited about that, and looking forward to getting those folks working and bringing down, some of the need that we have, because we want to do nothing but expand these service opportunities for folks. All right. And looking up here at my calendar, I want to, let's see here, one second. I want to also share, I think we have Jordan on here right now. Boop.
I am.
There's Jordan. So Jordan, we're also finishing up a fun little contract as well to do some generators. And so we're excited about that one, aren't we? So Michelle Duchesne and Jordan, I think, worked. I looked at Jordan, we submitted a list of, I think it was 650 different types of facilities to the state of California asking for money for generators for them. Mm-hmm. I have a feeling that we asked probably for more than all the other regional centers, which is why they gave us quite a bit of funding. So with that, though, they did not award Jordan her hefty request for 670, because we only got 500 residential providers. And then you think of all the day programs and other places that were on the list, ICF providers. Regardless, the state chose and awarded funding for 67 of those facilities, right?
Yes.
These are intermediate care facilities. These are day programs. I believe I saw day programs on there, and a few of them. And then also, obviously, arm level homes and like specialized homes.
Absolutely.
We are looking at, they basically awarded it at $5,000 a piece, right? The way it worked out. And so we've entered into a contract with MTB Construction, right? MTB Construction. And MTB Construction is going to be working with those 67 different providers, contacting them, talking to them about their new availability for a free portable generator that is going to be provided by the state of California to them. And I think where we're at right now is a portable generator, the type of cords to be able to utilize it. And then Scott, I think we're landing on
gas
or propane, right? We're still kind of figuring that part out right now, Scott.
I think that was propane we went with.
is
Mhm.
where we landed. Our board president Dan Lake, a longtime Vacaville firefighter, let us know that propane was something that we needed to be mindful of in the utilization of this as well. So,
Mhm.
um, unfortunately, the 5-day time period between when we knew that these funds were available and when it all needed to be spent by by Alta California Regional Center was a very big lift and ask by the state of California. But we also recognize that when it's the end of a fiscal year and they want to use funding in a smart way, being able to make a difference and provide that opportunity for folks is pretty cool. Eric, yeah.
As somebody like Dan who lives in PG&E territory and gets to deal with this. So a couple things. Is this all done? Can you make changes to it?
So what's going on right now? Yeah, so
Okay.
we can certainly take feedback. We've entered into a contract with the person that's going to be doing it.
Okay.
But as far as finalizing some of the specifics, bear in mind as well, it's still going to be up to each of the individual providers too. Like
Yeah.
the provider might say like, I don't really want this, but if they do, then that kind of allows us to do some different things. But yeah, questions, yeah.
Okay. So on the fuel, you can get dual fuel, which is super helpful. Sometimes when there's major outages, people run out of propane fast and they run out of gasoline. So just a thought that's happened up here.
Yep.
People couldn't get propane. So dual fuel. I have a dual fuel generator, and that seems to work well. I've chosen gas because I also can just get it and keep it a little easier when I need it. But dual fuel is a good way to go. The other thing, I didn't hear permitting costs. Maybe I missed it, but I'd highly recommend you can either do a separate generator with just a cord that goes into a house, which is not really best, or you do about $500 for an electrician to come out and tie into your panel and you put in a plug and they do it the right way. That's the way to go. If you're going to use a portable generator, you still do that. If that's at all possible, that make it much more useful and beneficial for all your folks, that plug option.
Thank you. And I think the nice thing too is we're working with community care licensing because they also have, rules and things like that about the storage of fuel and the utilization of these things. But the dual fuel was, I think, the first email that we got from the regional manager at CCL as far
Mhm.
as a recommendation. So yeah, we're getting into this right now where we're going to be working on this probably over the next few months to get them out to some of the different homes. But again, I want to applaud the department for kind of creatively looking at ways to try to support you guys as providers with some of the funding. And so anyways, again, it's a challenge because I say, hey, Jordan, we got to operationalize this in 3 days or something like that. But staff got it taken care of, and our board of directors, is amazing. Our board of directors was able to hear it on Monday at the executive committee and move it forward so that we didn't have to lose out on this opportunity for our providers. Alrighty, I want to just as a plug for folks, remind them that they can go to Alta's. They can go to Alta's website and look at our events calendar and all of the awesome information that we have there. And oh, Scott says they are dual fuel as well. Right on, Scott. Yeah, so Scott's kind of been like our research guy. Like Hubert was in the meetings. Scott was in the meetings. Like people that I don't know anything about generators, folks. So we really rely on you guys. Thank you, Scott, too, who reached out and got information for from CCL too for that one. So
Yeah.
all right.
And we are, Hubert and Dan will be working on a kind of a one-pager introducing this to the vendors that were selected, right? The 67 vendors to see if they want to take part in that. And then if they do, they'll get a whole nother little description of safety specs and CCL things and different things. So we're excited to get it rolling. Thank you, John.
Right on. So, and again, I put the events calendar in there. I do see that we have right now the July 24th Supported Living Services Forum. A lot of the information as it relates to supported living services rates, will probably come into focus by July 24th. So that might be a good one for us. But I just expect that August, September, maybe the second half of July, we're going to have to look at having possibly more discussions with you all as service providers as we look at getting more information from the department about what the rate study is going to look like. Again, I want to repeat what I mentioned last week and what I mentioned yesterday at our provider advisory committee meeting, which is that our plan for the transportation providers is that we are going to do a individual meeting with you to go over the directive. This meeting will probably take 2 hours. I would want to do that in person. We'll be looking at having it at our office at the regional center so that we can truly go over all the aspects of it, make sure people understand it very clearly. Once we've done that, we understand, from our last transportation vendor forum that there's a number of service providers that wanted to meet and talk about some of the challenges and concerns that they're facing right now in the environment of providing transportation services at the regional center. And so Michelle Duchesne is going to be working on setting up some individualized meetings with some different service providers as well, so that we can make sure that we really get an opportunity to hear what the challenges that you're facing and looking to see how we can do some kind of collaborative problem solving. With that, I will give a shout out to the transportation vendors that showed up and spent at least an extra half an hour after our provider advisory committee meeting yesterday talking to Michelle and I. It is extremely helpful for us to be able to sit down with you all and be able to hear directly from you about what your concerns are. And so just thank you for that. For those of you that were there, I know Eric's on, but we had 4 other providers that were out there hanging out with Michelle and I after the provider advisory committee too. So just want to encourage folks. And with that, to also say, please think about coming to our provider advisory committee meetings and are participating in the provider advisory committee at our regional center. They meet monthly, and it is a great opportunity for you to be able to be updated on things. Really high level stuff comes out during the provider advisory committee meeting. And again, I don't know who I have from On My Own or if I have Desmond on from On My Own, but I would give a shout out to Desmond from On My Own, who also came to our provider advisory committee meeting yesterday and helped me present about our assistive technology pilot that we have for the state of California. Desmond's one of those managers over at On My Own who's really been vital in making sure that this project gets lifted, and appreciate him coming in person to the provider advisory committee meeting yesterday and helping me present about this assistive technology pilot. It's 11:52. The only last thing I have on my calendar, Michelle Duchesne, is to say that we're not going to do a coffee with community services on the 5th of July. We'll send out notifications on MailChimp to everyone. But outside of that, we've got 91 folks on. So mark your calendars. Don't log in on July 5th. Take a day off from Coffee with Community Services. The newsletter is going to be coming out probably that following week as well, because we're going to wait to hold the newsletter for the month of July until we can get a budget update in there. And then we have to send it to get translated into 10 languages. And so rather than it coming out right there at the very 1st of July, it's going to be coming out probably about a week or so after, in order to give you all a lot more comprehensive information in the newsletter about the budget changes. And then we would not be a coffee with community services without Michelle Duchesne making a plug for the DSP stipend. So Michelle.
Thanks, John. Yeah, I just wanted to share, we don't have any new numbers. They haven't sent those to us. We're hoping to get those in the next week or so. 16 more days until the stipend deadline is due. So we're continuing to process those. We're continuing to get hundreds that come in. It's slowed down a little bit as we come to the end, but any questions, I'll put our contact email in the chat, but 16 more days to get your staff trained.
Excellent. All right. Thanks, folks, very much. I'll check the chat real quick. It looks like we're pretty good in there. Hope everyone has a fantastic weekend, and we will look forward to talking to people next week, next Friday, another budget update probably. You guys have a good one. Take care. Thank you.